Alright, so I don't normally do it this way, but I just kind of wanted to talk about this movie. So I just recently, actually I just came from the theater, and I saw this movie called The Shift, a movie that I wanted to check out before it leaves theaters or whatnot, and it's getting close, because like around where I live at, they only had one screening for it, so I wanted to make sure I checked that out. But basically it's just about a guy. It's from Angel Studios, first of all. It's about a guy who is given an opportunity to be part of this thing called shifting, where he's able to shift people from different like universes or whatnot. And so because of his loss and trauma that he had in his life, it turns him to kind of like go a different path. And that's the best way I can explain it. But it's a movie from Angel Studios. They had put out a movie earlier this year called Sounds of Freedom, which I really did like, and I'm going to be doing a review on it pretty soon, as of the next year or whatnot. So be looking out for that, because I really did like that film. This film, it was okay. I had my problems with it, because it's one of those films, sorry, I'm hungry, so don't mind me. It's one of those films where it's like, it deals in metaphors. And like, that's one thing about me and my form, or, you know, what I like in storytelling. When you could tell a metaphor in a movie, and the story in the movie still stands on its own when you take out the metaphor. And this one deals in that. And when you're watching it, it's not really so kind of like vague as to what the message is and what the metaphor is or whatnot. It literally tells you in the movie. But essentially, and I'm gonna get into it later, because I'm gonna get into spoilers a little bit, but this is non-spoiler. But the performances were good. Neil McDonough, he was the standout. Like, he was terrific in this movie, and he plays a really good villain. Like, he's one of those villains that's very like, you want to punch him in the face. He has a very punchable face. Like, he did an amazing job in this film. Like, he literally made it. And I found myself getting to the point where when he's in the film is 10 times better. It's kind of enjoyable. It's good enough when what's his name, Christopher Palaha, when his character, he's the main character, when he's on screen and we going through his story, it's like, it's okay. But when Neil McDonough is on screen, it makes the film so much better than it was before, just because he has this charisma that he brings out with his character and the things that he's doing. And I just love it about it. But all across the board, the performances were great. The main problem that I have with it is the story. And like I said, like, it goes with the pacing. The pacing of the movie just kind of goes, comes and goes. You know, it's hit or miss. Like I said, when McDonough is on screen, which he is in the beginning and going toward the end and everything goes, that's when everything starts to pick up. Everything in between just kind of slows down. And, you know, it's just like, okay, cool, we're just here. And I'm waiting till he gets back on screen. And so that's one thing that was kind of like, had me where it was like, yeah, I wasn't really feeling it. But the story itself depends too much on the metaphor. And that's, for me, where it kind of like takes a downgrade, because it could have been so much better had, you know, we had certain things in the film about the story be given to us. Like, why are they doing the shifting? What is it? Who's behind it? Like, it's certain things about it that we didn't get the answers for. And the reasons why we didn't get the answers for it was simply because it's a metaphor for something else. And it's like I just hate that. And this movie has a lot to do with it. And there was certain things that wasn't like, you know, gone back to and addressed and answered. So it was just, it had like a lot missing from it. And you could have had simple things, like, you don't have to tell every single thing when it comes to a story, but there's certain things you kind of do need to like tell in order for the story to, kind of, be good, and it just kind of lacked that. But overall, it's a pretty decent film. It is a faith-based film, more faith-based than I would have preferred. I know Sounds of Freedom had that in the movie, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was a regular movie, and it had, like, the faith part of it. And this movie was more so faith-based, that's what really, the message of it and what it really thrived on was scripture, believing in God and all that stuff. So if that appeals to you and you're religious like that, you probably might really enjoy this film. Me, not so much, and that it's not just because of the religious thing, but it's because of everything I said prior. But I mean, if I'll just say I recommend it if you are a religious person and that's your dig, these faith-based films, definitely check it out. Other than that, it is kind of a skippable, but that ends the non-spoiler section of this review. I'm not gonna try and take too long with this review. But one of what I hinted toward before was the fact that we didn't get too many answers. So in the movie, he loses his kid, and basically his kid gets taken away or whatnot. Like him and his wife are in the store, and the kid wanders off, and from then on, they don't know what happened to the kid. Got taken, whatever. And so it kind of shifts apart it kind of breaks apart their relationship slowly, because they're both dealing with this experience within their own way, and it kind of like takes them apart from each other and how they're dealing with it. And so we never get the answer to where his son was. The movie ends with him going into a new world, getting with a new version of his wife that he lost, that he couldn't find or whatever, and starting a new family with this different version of his wife or whatnot. But we never understand, because the benefactor, Neal McDonough's character, says in the movie that where he shifted his son to, he can never come back. And it was nothing more from that. It was like, where did he shift him to? How come he can't bring him back? And then the movie ends with and I guess it was a whole thing of moving on, getting past it, not holding on to the past, and moving toward the future and everything else. And I get that, but what? It was something. I could see that being in a thing to where if the son was really taken by somebody and was killed or something like that, and he was whatever, moving on, but they didn't really dwell on it that much. They didn't really answer where did he put him. It just seemed incomplete. And then he just moves on. It was you're not the least bit curious as to where your son is, why you can't bring him back. It's just, I don't know, it's weird. And then one of the things was the shifting, what I alluded to before. It's why were there shifting? What was he shifting for? If he was taking people, putting them over here and all this stuff, what was the purpose for it? I could see if it was a specific purpose, if he basically explained why, what he does, but he didn't explain why he does it. What was the purpose of the shifting? It was an unanswered question. Then on top of that, who created this? Who started this? Was he working for somebody? Was it just him? Did he come up with it? And he just started playing around with different universes, placing people here and this and that? And it's but why was his purpose? If it was something that he did on his own, what was the reason for it? We didn't get that answer. And it was just what the fuck? And that's why I said that this movie, I feel, is one of those movies that dwells so much on the metaphor. And when you take the metaphor out, it just doesn't stand on its own, because the metaphor of it was that, and like I said, it wasn't so subtle in the movie, was that the main character, I forget his name, Kevin. They say his name 1,000 times. His name, Kevin, told the story of Job. And from what I understand of Job was that God, I mean, as he told it, God basically made a deal with the devil that no matter what you do to Job, that he will always have favor, something of that line. And so the devil did everything that he could to him. He took his money, house, family, and he like his health bad and everything, but yet he still kept his faith in God. And so essentially this was Kevin. Kevin lost everything to him. He lost his wife, child, he lost his money in the beginning of the film or whatnot. And he just lost everything, but he still kept his faith. So essentially Kevin was Job. And you can look at the benefactor as Satan trying to lead Kevin away from God, have him stop believing God and come over to me and everything else. And it was like, okay, I get that, great, but when you take that metaphor out, what made Kevin so special? Because in the movie he mentioned that Kevin had, it was 1,000 other Kevins in 1,000 other worlds that he set up, that he went to, and that he gave them that proposition and they took it, and he was the only person that didn't. It was like, what made him so special? What about Kevin made him special? That was never addressed or answered. Like, Kevin didn't even ask himself, like, what makes me so special? Like, why you keep coming after me? And even later on in the film, he saw the benefactor when he came back. He had another version of Kevin. What made Kevin so special? It wasn't addressed, nor was it answered. And I'm just like, yeah, they're leaning too much into the metaphor and not making it a logical, a sensical, like, story. And I get fed up with stories like that. It's like, you can have your cake and eat it too when it comes to that. You can answer questions. You can set up a full-fledged story that stands on its own and throw the metaphor in. The metaphor honestly should be a bonus. Like, when you're doing movies like that or stories like that, it's just, it comes off, it's just like, I don't know. Like, if you're gonna do it like that, just make the story about whatever the metaphor is. The movie Mother, that was a heavy metaphorical like movie, but outside of the metaphor and what it stands for, it doesn't make sense. And the same thing I had with the movie Us with Jordan Peele. When you take out the metaphor of what he's trying to say, it doesn't make sense. Like, the story itself logistically doesn't stand on its own. And it's the same with this movie. It didn't care to answer questions because it was a metaphor for something else, but it just doesn't, it falls apart when you take out the metaphor. And I just hate those type of stories. It makes it just takes it down for me. Like, it puts it into the negative pile. And it's like, it all wasn't bad. I'm not saying this movie is just horrible, but it was just certain big things about the film that could have been addressed, that could have been answered, and it just wasn't. And there really was no reason. You still could have had a full-fledged story that had all the makings, every little hole filled up, but it just didn't. And I just hate those. And that's what I said, like, anybody, oh my God. Woo, that was bad. If you're like religious and stuff, you probably might end up really liking the movie. But I'm watching it, and it's just, that's what fell apart for me when I'm watching the movie. It was a pretty decent film. I can't say it was great. It was a pretty decent film. But honestly, it's just, those things threw me off. And then in the end, and I'm gonna wrap this up soon. Then in the end, when he gets back with a version of his wife, we never understood what happened to his wife. Like, why couldn't he go back to his actual wife, the actual version of his wife that he's been with, that he left from? Why couldn't he go with her? Why couldn't he make things right with her? Or even the version that he met up in the thing or whatever, in the last act. In the last act, it was like, why couldn't he meet up with that version of his wife? Why did he have to meet up with this version of his wife that already had a child, who was unmarried, they haven't met in this world and everything? Like, and then him being placed in there is like, everything's set up, like his social security and everything else. Like, and then who put him in there? You know, it's a lot of things that break apart with this movie, and it bugged the fuck out of me. I just wanted to get this off of my chest. I don't usually do this, and I might start doing it or whatever. But yeah, it was one of those movies where it was like, yeah, I was really bothered by just the decisions in the storytelling of the film. But I mean, if those questions were answered, then it would have made more sense. It would have been better for me. But I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know. I just hate those type of movies. But in any case, that has been my non-spoiler and spoiler review on The Shift. And yeah, have you watched this whole thing? Thank you for watching the whole thing. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like as well. And I will catch you guys on the flip side. So peace out, stay safe, and yeah, try to make sense of any story that you're telling.